Insurance isn't one size fits all, and shopping for it shouldn't feel like squeezing into something that just doesn't fit. That's why drivers have enjoyed Progressive's Name Your Price tool for years. With the Name Your Price tool, you tell them what you want to pay, and they show you options that fit your budget. Enough hunting for discounts, trying to calculate rates, and tinkering with coverages. Maybe you're picking out your very first policy, or maybe you're just looking for something that works better for you and your family. Either way, they make it simple to see your options. No guesswork, no surprises. Ready to see how easy and fun shopping for car insurance can be? Visit Progressive.com and give the Name Your Price tool a try. Take the stress out of shopping and find coverage that fits your life, on your terms. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
This is going to be an extremely busy month. I have to watch 104 soccer games, follow the pregame, the postgame, yell useless opinions at the TV. It's a lot. So I knew that when it comes to screening for colon cancer, the choice was clear. The Cologuard Plus test. It can be used at home and can only take 15 minutes, so I can do it during halftime and not miss any action. If you are 45 or older and at average risk, ask your healthcare provider about screening for colon cancer with the Cologuard test. You can also request a prescription at Cologuard.com.
If you're enjoying this conversation, good news.
Creator economy actually just a euphemism for the collapse of stable media jobs?
I mean, we've all been turned into freelance independent contractors, and like, so it's hard. It's simply harder to build a life that way. Like, it is not better to be a freelancer.
Adam Conover built a career pulling back the curtain on how things really work. From Adam ruins everything to factually. Now back to what does he see happening to artists, entertainers, and media workers right now?
What is something
Are we really in a golden age of independent creators? Or is this just the wreckage of a once stable industry repackaged as opportunity?
It is not better for your life. A couple people in very specific situations prefer it, and that's fine for those people. But as a means of employment, overall, the fact that the entire media industry has gone from employed with pension and health plans to freelance, hope that, you know, the YouTube back end gives you enough money to pay rent this month, like, that's bad for America.
If you think Hollywood, journalism, and media will simply bounce back from strikes, layoffs, and the shift to digital, this episode might make you rethink everything. What if the future media isn't just different, but fundamentally broken?
If you've ever wondered why hard work doesn't always pay off, congrats. You're exactly where you belong.
I'm Anna Marie Cox.
And I'm Open Mike Eagle.
And this is Past Due. We can open with how willing you are to share, like, what you've made lately.
The way I normally say it when I don't get into numbers is that I'm basically personally making, between all my streams of income, what I was making as a television host on basic cable, with the provisos that A, that's like 8, close to 10 years ago, and B, I don't have budget anymore. I used to have, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars an episode. I could employ all these people to make a media product that I really cared about. And right now I work with, you know, half a dozen freelancers, some of whom I, you know, pay out of pocket using my own payroll, and some of whom are paid by my podcast production company that I work with. So it's been a big change in the way that I work for me. And, you know, basically I left, I did a show for cable, then I did a show for Netflix. The Netflix show took 3 years because of the pandemic and also the new schedule of television. And I, right after that, sort of built a business for myself on the internet in a dedicated way. And so now my income is split between podcasting, YouTube, Patreon is a chunk of it, and then also live touring. And I honestly don't keep that much track of how much I make. It just sort of all goes into the bucket of my S Corp that I have. And then I pay myself twice a year, you know, and that's kind of it, you know, just money flows in, then I pay myself with what's left. But I can comfortably say that I've been, for the past couple years, I've been making 6 figures by doing that, which is good. And I'm lucky to be able to. I'm like, you know, I feel upper middle class in the influencer economy. You know, I'm not Mr. Beast. It's not like exploding or going crazy, but I am one of the lucky ones who's actually able to make a business with this. Of course, a business that has no health insurance or job security, but I'm doing all right.
When you look at what you've built, because I think about this a lot too, because I'm like, my revenue streams are very similar these days, and it's funny because I've gone through a similar transition too, from having a television show or two to now putting my income together through Twitch streaming and making YouTube videos and podcasting. I still have, independent music as a career too, but that has been a sinking ship for a while anyway. But I'm curious, in terms of what you've built, do you feel like what you have in terms of your revenue streams, do you feel like what you have now is a sustainable machine, or do you feel like you still need to add things to it? Do you need to add any revenue streams, or do you feel like what you have now is a sustainable thing for the foreseeable future?
I've been working hard to make it more sustainable, and that means bringing on people who can do a chunk of the work, not for me, but with me, so that it's not all me gutting it out every single moment. The fact of the matter is that I do a weekly podcast. At this point, I'm doing twice a month YouTube videos, touring, and Patreon. You can't do any of that. You can't do all that together as a single person, right? So I have a social assistant who I pay by the hour to do my posts on social media and to post all the stuff on Patreon for all the Patreon backers. I have a couple of writers who I work with where, we have a meeting to decide what the video is going to be about, and then they outline it, and then they do the first draft, and I revise it. I am not the kind of writer where I don't really write solo. Like, I love to write with other people. That's sort of what helps me power through the ADD, talking about it with other people, brainstorming, working on a document together, and then I take the final draft after, they've integrated all my notes and stuff like that. Like, I need to sort of work in a head writer, showrunner sort of mold. I have a producer who, thank God, was a wonderful man named Tony, who, both records and edits my podcast, but also like liaises with the ad people and makes sure that, if there's a kerfuffle with, they thought the ad was coming out on the 18th, but it's actually needs to be pushed, or like we didn't get the script in time and we got to send it to them. Like, that is all so essential. Oh my God, something came up. I need to reschedule this record. You're right. Well, that's a 6-step task to even see if it can be rescheduled. And thank God I have people working with me who can handle that piece of it. The problem is they're all working for me freelance at this point, right? And they're being very patient. You know what I mean? Because they're making a couple $100 or a couple $1,000 a week or a month, right? They don't have health insurance. It's one part of their income. And yet they are sort of being accountable to me for their time, which, I think of freelancers being generous when they do that, right? You guys work freelance, that you're doing other shit. And sometimes it's like, hey, I can't answer your Slack message at 8 p.m. because I'm a fucking freelancer, man, right? And so what I want and what my goal is to build over the next year or two is to turn basically my one-person operation, where it's me and a half a dozen freelancers, into an actual company where these people can be full-time employees, right? Yeah. And then I can actually be like, oh my God, I've gainfully employed people. They are really on my boat. We are really sailing the seas together. We are not half in, half out with each other. But to do that, I have not seen a way to do that doesn't require upfront investment from some source. Like, I need somebody to give me some money and invest it to give myself a couple runways so that I can so that I can offer people that, right? Because like the minimum amount you'd want to pay somebody in Los Angeles, what's the absolute minimum amount? Let's say it's 50 grand, right? For someone, which I would say was a minimum 10 years ago. That, like, currently, that's just like 50 grand that I don't make. I can't afford to do that.
Sometimes I feel like when we talk about the creator economy, or like those of us who are trying to like put something together that is something we care about, that's not just, don't mean to insult anybody here, but like a jobby job, right? We're all passing the same dollar around, right? Like, we're all just like employing each other. Maybe say that a different way. I think this is happening in the economy in general. We're all passing the same dollar around.
That's how the economy works.
Money off of those of us who aren't making money off of capital, right? Like those of us who are making money off of the money we already made. You could say that's how the economy works, except I think that there's this particular class that we really are almost literally passing the same dollar around.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, what's happened to I'll give you my general theory of what's happened to the media in general, which is that the main thing that's happened via the influencer economy is we've destroyed media infrastructure. It used to be that there were, these companies that made media. They employed hundreds of people. They had lawyers. They had upfront investment. When they offered you a job, they could give you a year contract. They had relationships with advertisers that had established quotes that they knew that they could fund everything off of, right? It's infrastructure. It's like building anything. It takes time to build it, right? You can't do it all at once. Then, the tech companies come in, they create the ability for anybody to upload anything and to make a little bit of money off of it. And that's where all of the eyeballs go, because the tech companies did a ruthless job of destroying traditional media and centralizing the eyeballs on themselves and making it impossible for magazines, even internet native video sites like College Humor, cable channels, made it impossible for any of them to make a living under their existing business model. So all those crumble, right? And all the talent, that's us, from journalism, from the music industry, from comedy, right, have to go directly to those platforms and build our businesses there. There's been some advantages, which is that, there's been a lot more accessibility. People from all over the country can now, show up on people's televisions on YouTube, right? But the disadvantage is it's destroyed the infrastructure. And so now you can no longer do journalism that requires 3 people to spend 1 year on an investigative story. You can no longer do a late night show that has the kind of joke writing that takes 10 nerds in a room. You can no longer, I don't know what the equivalent is for you, Mike. I'm sure you have some example. You can no longer give, some starting artist like, a couple $100,000 to cut their first album with actual resources, right? Now they have to do it in their bedroom. And that's like bad, because it's like that change, that destruction of infrastructure is simply bad. It makes the product worse, because now we no longer get that sort of media that costs more money to make. And B, it makes everybody's job less secure. Now, my theory of the case is that in media, we're going to start rebuilding the infrastructure. That YouTube, just to take one example, is the platform. It's the cable company, right? Mm-hmm. But the channels are starting. Yeah, they're the aggregator. But the channels are starting to become more like cable channels. And big evidence for this, you see it every day in the Hollywood press. Mr. Beast is doing his own upfronts right now. He's doing his own. He and 2 other creators. There's a story about this in, I think, the Hollywood Reporter yesterday. The upfronts are the events where, for those who don't know, where the cable companies would say, here's all our new shows, advertisers, here's why, you should spend $1 million on Turner cable channels this year, right? I used to be at these when I had a show on cable. Like, they would make me go and say, hi, I'm Adam Conover. I used to have to shake hands with the literal people from Johnson & Johnson and say, yes, please advertise on my show. So the point is, the very high end of the YouTubers, right? Mr. Beast is literally having his own upfronts because he is trying to create that kind of like revenue for himself. What happens when he does that? He is now a cable channel, right? And he could afford to produce larger things, right? He could afford to actually invest money. I mean, the guy already employs tons of people under horrible working conditions, but like, it's impossible to look at that and not say, oh, this man is building the new cable, right? And there are other people who are trying to do scripted media on YouTube, etc. And that's why I'm looking at it and going, okay, the job for me now, unfortunately, is to try to build a business infrastructure to produce the kind of content that I want. You can still make money being like a solo person, right? But you can't do it with the kind of resources. If you want the resources, you have to go build them for yourself, and you have to like find someone who can invest the money up front. So for instance, at some point, all the journalists who left to Substack, some of them are going to have to get together in a big enough bundle that they can like sell access to all of themselves for $5
and create a newspaper or magazine is what you're saying.
Yes, literally. And literally create a newspaper or a magazine. And, I think in 20 years, we're going to look back at this and say, oh, new boss, same as the old boss. And hopefully the period that we're in right now will be an unfortunate blip where all that infrastructure is dead. But eventually we're going to need this media ecosystem to mature, just like radio did in the 40s, just like cable did in the 90s. The same thing's going to happen. And we're just going to be watching it on YouTube rather than fucking Spectrum. Sorry, you're going to have to keep paying Spectrum because you're going to need to pay them for the cable bill. But that is what I think is going to happen. And that's the transition that I'm trying to figure out how to get myself across right now.
I wrote a little song to remind you, Choice Hotels get you more of the experiences you value. The Cambria Hotel's got it all. A rooftop bar, have a ball. Bring a date, your squad, or even your mom. Book direct at choicehotels.com.
I'm curious about, you have writers that you work with for your YouTube.
Yeah.
I once watched a YouTube video that made my blood run cold. It was a guy who had a very successful channel talk about why he was quitting YouTube. And what he was saying was that the rough thing about YouTube as a revenue stream is that you can spend a week's worth of time working on a video and it doesn't guarantee that it's going to make the income that you need it to make. And so I think about that a lot in terms of my YouTube channel. There's things that I want to talk about that I feel like are more risky, and I'm less willing to do it because I need the videos to keep performing well. For you being in a position where you're hiring other people, which means these videos have to be delivering revenue, do you contend with risk at all in terms of the subjects that you're choosing to explore? Like, do you feel very sure that all of them are going to do well all the time? Or are you ever concerned that, oh, this one might be a swing and a miss, and then does that sort of mess up the economy for your YouTube?
The lucky thing right now is that all my videos for the year are already fully funded, and I'm in a position where I'm not personally taking the financial risk. So when I was starting out doing the YouTube monologues that I do, I've been doing them for about 2 years. I was literally just paying people out of pocket. I'd ask a friend who's a comedy writer, hey, can you help me like break this outline and, help me on the drafts and help me do punch up, get a producer I know to come literally shoot me in my bedroom. Okay, how much? You're going to cost $500. You're going to cost $300. Okay, great. Let me pay all you guys. Literally, I use a payroll platform called Gusto that like generates W-9s for people. And I was doing that for the first couple videos. And I was honestly taking a loss on them because they were an experiment. And I'm luckily in a financial position where I'm like, yeah, I can spend $2,500 on a video, $3,000 on a video. It isn't more than that, but mid to low four figures in order to just like try this out creatively. Then it worked. And then I started getting, around that same time, I got a reach out from a sponsor called USA Facts, which is Steve Ballmer's nonprofit that like aggregates facts and puts them online. They wanted to do some videos and we were able to do a little deal. So I did like 6 videos with them, maybe 5 in like 2023. In 2024, I brought it to my podcast company that I work with, which is Headgum/Gumball. Those are the two halves of the company. And I was already doing my podcast with them, for which they were paying the production budget. And we worked out a deal where I won't get into all the details because we adjusted the deal a couple times. But basically, they pay for the production budget for these, and they get the exclusive rights to sell ads on them. And so in 2024, we did another half dozen. And then for 2025, they were able to get one of our sponsors, Ground News, to agree to sponsor 24 videos for the year. And so now we're just doing 24 monologue videos this year. That's in addition to the podcast videos. And so that way, each one of my writers knows we have basically sort of one research producer and one comedy writer. They both sort of, split roles a little bit. Their names are Sam and Andre. They're very talented, wonderful people. They know that like, all right, I'm doing this many videos this year with Adam, and, it's a little bit more reliable for them. And so that sort of helped us reach a plateau where not every video is such a risk and where we can try stuff out. And, if one video gets on the low end, these monologues might get 250,000 views. We also just had one that got 1.8 million. And so the sponsor is going to be generally happy with that. And they're not counting on every single one. If I was trying to do the style, there's some people on YouTube who do no ad sponsorships and they make all of their income off of the YouTube rev share and off of Patreon. And these are some of my favorite people on YouTube. ContraPoints and H-Bomber Guy are 2 examples of people who are
fantastic. Love his 4-hour video on plagiarism.
Incredible.
Highly recommend it to everyone. I know that sounds like you won't possibly sit through it. Trust me.
Incredible, right? And ContraPoints is a 3-hour video on Twilight was like, I was like, this should be taught in grad schools. It's like a work of original philosophy that's getting millions of views. But these folks have got themselves incredibly healthy Patreon numbers, and B, but also it is a much riskier enterprise, right? To try to spend, 6 months of your life making one video that needs to perform well. It also would really trigger my perfectionism. I need a faster cadence or I'll drive myself nuts. If I spend that much time on something, I'll never get it done. So there's all different ways to mitigate the risk that you take. And I'm lucky enough to have gotten myself in a position where I have regular sponsorship. So we can just crank them out and not stress too much. But the live or die by the performance of each individual post, that's death to a creator. You have to get yourself out of that hole or you're gonna sink. You cannot operate that way long term. And that's why people burn out. That's why so many YouTubers make that video. That's why I'm quitting, because if you're just trying to make your money off of straight algo, you will drive yourself fucking nuts.
And then there's the problem of even getting sponsors, right?
Yeah.
Like that economy is, I think, a mystery to a lot of people. And how do you even do you hustle to get a sponsor? Does a sponsor discover you? YouTube is supposed to, I think, do it for you, help a little bit. But it's the cycle of you already have to have broken through.
Yeah.
Right. And what breaks through. It's the algorithm of just people get fed the same thing over and over. I have a friend who was a pretty prominent YouTuber who got really sick.
Mm.
And imagine what that does to the creative economy, right? I was actually thinking about it right now. I have this huge piece due, and I had an instance of really severe depression and basically chronic fatigue in 2023. If that hit me right now, I'd be fucked.
Yeah.
I just wouldn't get paid what's going to be a couple months worth of my expenses. And the precarity of it is, I think, kind of built into capitalism, right? It keeps us from taking risks. It definitely and also relying on the platforms, I think, prevents us from taking risks. Okay, everyone here, I think, knows how much I hate newsletters. And Substack in particular, even though I have a Substack. Did you know Elon tried to buy it last year?
I heard a rumor about that.
Yeah. Imagine if he bought it. All of these platforms could get bought out from underneath any of us.
Yeah.
Right. And suddenly shut down the kinds of content we want to produce. And already Google is doing acquiescing in advance on DEI shit and whatnot, right? I don't mean to terrify people.
I mean, but we kind of have to be a little terrified.
As long as we're depending on these platforms, we're in trouble, which is one of the reasons why when you're joking about Substack writers, I'm not joking, when you're saying Substack writers need to get together and put out their own publication, I'm yeah, okay, they would do that and they charge to cover everybody, right? You pay one fee to get everyone's writing. And then who knows, maybe they'd take it off Substack and they'd put it on they'd have a URL of their own, let's say. I don't know. What would that be like?
Well, I have a couple.
Like you're saying, we reinvent this stuff. But one more thing. If our economy crashes, again, the precarity is the point. Who's going to be left to create that shit?
Yeah, these are all really hard questions. One answer that I have to the idea of the platforms being able to kill us at any moment is that your personal connection with your audience is your buffer against that. I was asked this by a funder group that was looking to fund more left-wing media. And they were what if the platforms just fuck us? And I was well, the antidote is that if people like and know a particular personality or communicator, they'll follow them wherever. And so that is an antidote to that. If you exist in people's minds, right? And they're I like Mike. Where's Mike at? I know Mike has those fans. I know I have those fans. I know you do as well. And so that is a potential antidote. But also, my view is kind of this has always been true of the media economy, right? We've always been dependent on, when newspapers were still all over the place, we were dependent on newspapers if you were a journalist. When all people watched was television, you were dependent on the television channel. You were dependent on CBS or NBC. The difference that existed back then was stability, that these were large businesses that had been around for decades, that had consistent revenue streams and that weren't going anywhere, right? And all of those media businesses were destroyed by the tech industry. The challenge now is to build them again. And once we have some stability in media, we'll all have better lives. We won't like have escaped capitalism. We never will. We're always going to be living in precarity and at the whims of billionaires. That's going to take a larger societal issue. When the economy crashes, yeah, that'll fuck everybody. You know what I mean? It's sort of like, hey, if the stock market crashes, what happens to your money? I don't know what happens to everybody's money, man. That's the premise of our entire society. You know, like we can't hedge against that. But I do think that like, lately, my thing has just been infrastructure. And just if I could just harp on the ad point again one more time, it's insane to me that if you watch like, okay, so I just think about my area, late night style comedy, right? Everyone watches it on YouTube, right? Mm-hmm. People are watching, 10 million people are watching Jon Stewart on YouTube. How much does Viacom make from that? From those 10 million views, I don't know, 50 grand or something like that. So what's funding the show? It's all the people who are still watching it on linear, because the ad rates are literally 100 times higher on linear on cable than they are on YouTube. Why? Because people are watching YouTube. The YouTube's biggest platform is televisions in your house. So people are still watching a 65-inch image of an ad playing in front of Jon Stewart in exactly the same spot on their ass that they were 15 years ago. So why is the company making vastly less money? It's because it took them 50 years to build up all of those ad quotes with Johnson & Johnson and Toyota and all of that, right? And to have the upfronts and et cetera. Where now we live in a world where YouTube is just auctioning off, 30 seconds at the beginning. And, Comedy Central hasn't figured out how to get an ad buy in the middle of the Jon Stewart thing yet, right? In the middle of that video. Once they fucking figure it out, they'll be able to build a stable business. YouTube is not going anywhere, right? YouTube is a monopoly. It's been a monopoly for 20 years. I don't really expect that YouTube is going to suddenly not be the thing that people watch on their televisions. So that's the new fucking platform. That's the new charter cable company. That's the new NBC. So time for the media business people to figure out how to build a fucking sustainable business on it. And Mr. Beast appears to be one of the only people doing it because he's holding his own upfronts. But I think that will answer not all of your questions, but half of them once we have that kind of economy. Like, I would love it if you and Mike and me could all go pitch some motherfucker in a suit who has the power to pay us 80 grand a year in health insurance. That's the world we're trying to get back. It's not a perfect world. Wasn't a perfect world in the 90s, but I would love to just take a meeting with Mr. Beast and be like, hey, dude, I know that you've got millions of dollars a year coming in. Why don't you take a flyer on my show? And I think I can make you some money, right? That person doesn't currently exist right now. And so Mr. Beast is a piece of shit, but I'd love to pitch him one day. You know what I mean? That's what I think we need.
In one vein, it's interesting to hear the ins and outs of your UGC business, right? You have these people you work with, these people you collaborate with, because what I sense is the case for YouTube, and this is through my consumption, this is through my son's consumption, and just people I pay attention to. YouTube is a platform that sort of has this inherent assumption that whoever is speaking to you, these are words that they thought of themselves. This is their opinion. And you're tuning in because you're having a conversation with a person. In your outlook on, I guess, building the economy of YouTube, do you think that assumption will always be present? Because I think in what you're saying, it sounds like that's sort of limiting to it. That it would be a detriment to you adding other hosts to the Adam Conover channel, for instance, because those people are there to hear Adam Conover. They're not there to hear this other host who you think might be an interesting person.
I don't know. Does anyone think that like Jon Stewart writes the entire Daily Show? Right.
Well, but I do think that's a little different than.
Is it the aesthetic issue? Like,
I think it's where you meet the media, and specifically with YouTube, mostly what people come to it for are people's individual channels.
I mean, that's the history of YouTube, and so that's a little bit inherent to the form, but it's not the only type of material that can work well on YouTube. For instance, YouTube is also one of the largest streaming music platforms. People just go there to listen to music. And they could cut off just that piece of it and it would be an extremely successful business. So I think that that's something that works well on YouTube, but it's not mandatory. And there's ways to build networks. If you look at, for instance, I think about the Daily Wire a lot, very successful conservative, media network that is one of these infrastructure-based media companies. They're doing a subscription video, they're doing advertising-based video. They have you can subscribe to Daily Wire Plus to get all their extra shit. They're making TV shows and movies and animated shit right now. Of course, the core of it is Ben Shapiro talking direct to camera, Matt Walsh talking direct to camera, but they have these multiple things that they're doing. And I think that those types of content, other types of content can exist on YouTube. We're starting to see literal scripted content on YouTube. It's very low rent right now, but I've seen it's literally looks like just 22-year-olds writing their own Twilight episodes, but they're up to, I forget the name of this. I just saw it for the first time the other day, but it was 5 22-year-olds somewhere doing Twilight. They're up to season 4, and season 4 episode 1 had 1.4 million views. And I'm like, you get these people a real business person and you sell some ads against it. And, this could be competing with what's on television. It'll get there eventually. And YouTube's intention is to compete with television. If you look at all of their presentations now, they're like, we are TV, we are TV, we are TV. So they're going to be pushing their content creators, in quotation marks, in that direction because they see how much is available to them. I mean, YouTube has eaten so much of everything else that we considered television. Everything but high budget scripted, right? What do you want to watch? Do you want to watch everything but high budget scripted and live sports, right? Has gone to YouTube. Do you want to watch sports recaps? Do you want to watch funny people talk about the news of the day? Do you want to literally watch the news? Do you want to watch cooking content, home content, daytime television? All of that has all gone to YouTube, and YouTube very clearly wants to get the rest of it, which is scripted, which I think they will eventually. So I think what you're talking about is will always be an advantage of the format, but if we continue to think about these companies as only platforming influencers, meaning someone talking direct to camera, we're missing what they're actually doing. They're going for all of media. And so all of media can potentially thrive on there.
It's funny because when Mike and I have talked before, I've always been the person who's we can find hope in the darkness. We survive one day at a time. But talking about this shit, I get so apocalyptic about it. Because I hear you talk and I think about, yes, a return to some version of what I now realize were the good old days of having a corporate expense account and even doing campaign coverage and White House coverage, which is hugely expensive. Perhaps y'all know that, and it's filtered out into the infosphere. But that's tens of $1,000s a day if you want to do it won't be that again, but that's what it used to be, right? And flying around the country to cover, I don't know, wildfires and stuff. It's hugely expensive. And the benefit of that, even the expense account, it's true. It's fun to go get drunk on your expense account, but also it is part of just being able to do your job, to be given a card where you can get things done without having to scrape into your own account, right? And people are discovering that as they've cut off the corporate cards for federal government employees, for instance, at the top. So I hear you talking about how great it would be to pitch someone a show and have someone be able to give you that money and be able to take a running start, be able to really develop something. And then I think about my history as a blogger, right? And I think about the restrictions of that infrastructure and how hard it is for someone to break through. And that's where I kind of get the romance of the direct to camera, person being able to get somewhere with that studio we have in our pocket, as people who love YouTube like to say, although I roll my eyes at that too, because I think increasingly it's people with budgets. So I don't know. I'm just going to come down hard on everything that you throw out to be hopeful about. And the only solution is universal basic income. But,
Oh, I mean, universal basic income is a scam perpetrated by the wealthy in order to cut the welfare state. So, like,
you would also get nationalized healthcare and shit. Like, it would be
sure,
just,
they're not going to do that.
Well, I'm telling you, the solution is a robust social safety net.
Look,
but anyway.
Yes, there are restrictions that come with, with working for a larger company. In addition to the benefits, there's also restrictions that come with working on YouTube. Like, you have to, if you don't talk about what they want you to talk about, you don't get seen. They're determined algorithmically, but it's not like, the internet is some free-form place where, the most interesting content wins all the time. Like, the idea that there aren't gatekeepers now, like there were gatekeepers then, or that it's going to be harder for someone to break through. It's hard to break through now. I know plenty of people who are trying to break through with comedy. It's not working for them, even though they're very talented, because like their shit doesn't work on the algo. So I'm kind of an optimistic pessimist. I'm like, there's always an opportunity you can find. Right now, we're in kind of a bad period. We need to build better infrastructure in media that's going to create the kind of media that we want. That won't be perfect either. We're going to be complaining then, just like we were complaining in the 90s and we have complained in every decade. But, what are you going to do but try to make a slightly better world? That's the best answer I have for it.
This episode is brought to you by Starbucks.
That is fire.
Whoa, that's good.
This might be the drink of the summer.
Okay, I like this one too. I'm rocking with it. Okay.
Try it for yourself. Starbucks Refreshers Concentrates are coming home. Find them in the coffee aisle and make it yours.
When you were talking about the difference in ad rates on YouTube versus on linear television or broadcast television, that reminded me when I had my show, The New Negroes, on Comedy Central.
Great show. I love that show.
Thank you. And as most experiences in television are completely fucking soul crushing. Yeah. But one of the frustrating parts of it was that this was when, in terms of being able to view their content online, the only thing they had available was the janky Comedy Central website and, Hulu. Like, there were hella platforms around that at that time Comedy Central refused to truly engage with a lot of their content. And we couldn't figure out why for the longest. And then in talking to the execs, it turned out to be, their bottom line for like all of Paramount Cable at the time lived and died by what they could get based on the ad rates for people watching it on cable. So they really weren't even interested in having the content available to people widely back then, to the point where it killed a bunch of shows, know? And all that to say is, I believe you said a moment ago that you in a perfect world, the three of us can go pitch something. And given how I can say my experiences were like 65% bad. And I've sold like 3 shows but most, like, if I lay out all of my experiences I had in the television industry, most of them are just ass. Given what you have right now, would you want to go back to that? Is what I'm curious about.
I mean, yes. So I was lucky enough to have good experiences in the television industry. My first show was a hit for the network. I got to basically write it the way that I wanted to. It found an audience and it, created the career that I have today. That's what most people know me from. I was able to do a Netflix show, which a lot of that experience was not great for a lot of different reasons, but I'm very proud of the work that we put out and the show that we were able to make. And that's sort of what I see myself as doing. I wanted to be on cable. I got to be on cable, and I want to be a showrunner again, right? And part of the reason is I want those resources. I want a writer's room of 10 people, and then I want to go film the thing on a set with a camera person whose name I know, right? and who. I mean, look, on Adam Ruins Everything, on the final season, our A-cam op and our B-cam op, right? These are the people who are literally operating the cameras. They fell in love and then they got married. And by the way, they thought they were being so sneaky, but I had to look at these people all day long and I saw how they looked at each other. And I was like, these two are canoodling. I talked to the makeup girl. I was like, hey, head of makeup. I was like, hey, Alex, you think those two are getting together? She's like, let me see. Yeah, I think maybe. And then they came to the wrap party holding hands and they thought they were surprising everybody. I was like, I fucking knew 6 months ago because we were a family on set, right? Because we spent all day. We had like fucking 65 shooting days that year, right? We shot for 6 months. So that's what you get when you actually get to make a media product. That is a vanishingly small experience for people. Then there's the fact that every single one of the people on that set had a union job. And True. So, or 80% of them did. PAs and other folks still need unions, but we had union jobs and we had health insurance. We had a pension plan, right? Which we, came about because this business was stable enough that the workers were able to form unions and negotiate over the course of decades with these companies, right? That show was with Warner Brothers. Warner Brothers has been making stuff since like the 20s. And so we had a, 100-year-old union contract with them. And that is why the media industry in America is a middle-class industry, is because of all of that. And that is what the tech industry has come and destroyed, right? And so, sure, it's a pain in the ass to have to deal with dumbass executives and whatnot.
So dumb.
But I still prefer it. I think still, if you can make it work, it's a better industry than the one that, we're all talking into right now. I would rather have that support and that infrastructure because that's what enables you to build a life. I mean, we've all been turned into freelance independent contractors, and like it's hard. It's simply harder to build a life that way. Like, it is not better to be a freelancer. It is not better for your life. A couple people in very specific situations prefer it, and that's fine for those people. But as a means of employment, overall, the fact that the entire media industry has gone from employed with pension and health plans to freelance, hope that, the YouTube back end gives you enough money to pay rent this month, like, that's bad for America and us.
And also, I just realized while you were talking, turning us all into freelancers and taking away like the workplace makes it really hard to meet romantic partners too.
Yeah.
Like,
people
you're forced
used to
app
fuck at those office parties.
Yeah. Right. Writers' rooms, man. Like, people fucking each other all the time. Now?
I mean, the amount of infrastructure that has collapsed, like literally. So one of my first jobs in comedy was as a writer for College Humor, right? Which is a website that employed, like, I'm going to say 50 people. I was one of half a dozen comedy writers. My job was to write comedy every single day. It made me a very good comedy writer. We also had shooters. We had producers. We had all these people who went on to get jobs in TV later. Now that entire business category does not exist. Like a business, a media, a digital native media production company that's just exclusively making comedy. Those don't exist anymore. There is stuff like the Daily Wire, right? And and Crooked Media.
Who are only making comedy accidentally.
Yeah, absolutely. No, they're making comedy on purpose, actually. Like, a lot of their stuff, a lot of their output is comedy, and their audience finds it very funny. Matt Walsh is fucking doing Michael Moore, But apart from that, there's entire spheres of media that where there's no longer any infrastructure. I had health insurance at College Humor. There's literally nowhere that would pay a 30-year-old sketch writer a job, a middle-class income with health insurance to make stuff digitally native for the internet anymore. It doesn't exist. And that sucks. And we need to rebuild it.
If you're enjoying this conversation, good news. We've got even more. Every episode, we record extra content for our Patreon. Stories, tips, and insights that don't make it into the main episode.
So if you want to hear more from today's conversation with Adam, including his worst gig ever, subscribe to our Patreon at patreon.com/pastdue. You'll get early access to episodes, extended interviews, and more.
Now back to the show.
What is something you'd want people to take away from our conversation?
What's something I want people to take away from the conversation? I would like people to have a little bit of realism with how they look at it and to not buy the narratives that are being spun at them about how things have changed. There's a lot of people who look at it and say, the good old days are over. We live in a hellscape and we're never going back and there's no hope. That's you, right? That's clearly you. And everything is bad now, and all we can do is sit around and lament how bad things are. Something bad has happened, but there is a future ahead of us that we can build, right? And that, guess what? It is unfortunately incumbent upon you to build it. Like, no one else is going to do it for you. I am in the position of saying, I guess I have to be a fucking media mogul and build my business. I didn't want to have to do that. I just wanted a CEO. I wanted to pitch them and say, we like your pitch. Here's $1 million. And now you can make the thing you want to make, and we'll make money off of it because we figured out the revenue model. Well, guess what? All those people destroyed their own businesses. They put a gun to their head and pulled the trigger. They allowed YouTube to eat their lunch. And now I have to be the media mogul. I have to figure out how to build the business because these fucking dumbasses have abdicated their responsibility. I didn't want to do that. I just wanted to be a comedian. But oh well, I guess I got to be a business guy now. Fuck me. But that's the reality, and I've chosen to embrace it. I would also caution people to not believe the narrative of like, oh, we're in the influencer economy and everything is different now and, yada, 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 and it's better and everyone has access now. This is a line that's sold you by the tech industry to justify the ways that they've destroyed so much of media for their own gain. You have to be really skeptical of that as well. You have to have a clear-eyed view of what's happening, who did it, and what you can do next, because there's always something that you can do next. There's always you might have missed the last boat. There's always a new boat leaving every day. Your job is to figure out what the boat is and fucking get on it. And if you need to pilot the boat yourself, so be it. You may need to. And you may fuck it up and you may crash into the rocks and die. But oh well, that's the world you live in. Pessimistic optimist.
I just want to point out that I am bitching and moaning and complaining, but I have a new podcast that I'm doing.
I'm not accusing you of anything.
Something.
Yeah.
And I just think it is okay to be, you're angry, and I feel like I just want people to be angry. Like, yeah. I think taking action and building what you have to build and having to be the CEO and whatever, the hustle. Like, I am hustling. I'm just angry about it. And I think it's okay to be angry about it because I think that the structures should change. Yeah. That we should be voting and organizing in ways that help those structures change. You're the one who told me that the history of the Writers Guild is socializing, right? Is people getting together and bitching about what they were getting paid.
Correct.
But
then taking action, and also, taking action under capitalism and figuring out how to bend it to their ends, So I also think it's like we're not going to create a whole new form of media that's not dependent on capitalism. I don't think that's the case either. We're going to need to use the logic of the system in order to rebuild a media ecosystem that's worth living in to some extent, unfortunately.
Again, I get to complain and dream of a better world.
No, absolutely you do. And you get to build one, and you will through your productive action. You will build a better world by doing that every day. The world will get better because of what you do in it.
And I also think that, because it's funny, because one of the things that Mike and I talk about a lot is the solution to despair and to hopelessness is connection, right?
Yes.
And I think that even it's also the solution to the hustle economy in many ways, right? Is like to realize you're not alone doing this. The hustle economy that we are kind of preached to as though we're alone. I think it's one of the problems, like talking about people meeting on the set, right? Like that's just sort of like a literal embodiment of how those are collective things that we do together, and you're reminded all the time that they happen collectively. Whereas in the creator economy or hustle economy, whatever you want to call it, the propaganda is you're making it, you're doing it, it's your connection to your audience, it's your product, you're the brand. And I think it destroys the connections between us, which makes it harder to organize and makes it harder to change things. And ultimately, I think also means we produce not as good art or not as good culture.
I entirely agree. The idea that, everyone is an atomic creator all by themselves, first of all, leads to burnout and bad content if you just try to do it by yourself all the time. It's very hard to do that well. But yeah, it makes everything worse. I'm very aware that my channel only does well because of the other people I work on it with, right? And I need them to do it. If you try to do something alone, there's a very low ceiling on what you can accomplish all by yourself. It's always going to happen with other people. And I think you're right that finding other people is the first step towards making the world a little bit better, like we're doing right now.
Yeah. So I think I'll move on to like our very last thing, which is very important to this program, which is pluggables. What do you got to sell? What do you got? What do you got? What do you got? Where is your hustle? How can people help? How can people not help? Actually, let's reframe that. How can people pay for a great product that you produce?
Well, if people really want to support it, they can go to patreon.com/Adam Conover and support me directly. You can watch my show on YouTube. I do a podcast called Factually. I also do monologues, which are sort of not quite under the Factually umbrella, but are just sort of a different type of video that I do. You can come see me live. That's a really important way to support what I do. I'm on tour constantly across the country and the world, adamconover.net for those tickets. And if you happen to be someone who could, give me $1 million, all I need is $1 million to start a media company where I can employ 10 people for a year or two, we can make something great. What I need right now is like startup capital. And I don't want to be a fucking business person. I want to be a socialist, right? And I'm a union organizer. But at the same time, I'm like, there is money to be made that people are not making properly because the tech industry has, kicked all the sandcastles down. We need to start rebuilding them. People need to start putting money into media again. So if you're one of those people and you, for some God's known reason, is listening to this show, hit me up.
I don't think rich people. Our millionaire demographic is larger
this show's
than
aimed
you'd think.
at impoverished freelancers. I can tell.
Adam, take care.
I'll talk to you guys later.
Thanks so much for listening to Past Due. We want to hear from you. Find us at pastduepodcast.com or on Blue Sky and Instagram at @pastduepodcast.
And while you're at it, give us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts and all the places you listen to podcasts. Thanks again.
Past Due is hosted by Anna Marie Cox and Open Mike Eagle. It's produced by Andrew Steven. You can find more at pastduepodcast.com. Help support the show by joining our Patreon at patreon.com/pastdue. You'll get bonus content, extended interviews, and more. As always, if you like what we're doing, another way to help is by subscribing, sharing the show, and leaving us a review. Thanks for listening.
There are a bunch of ways to prevent crime that no one is talking about, like how wind direction can make your community more violent or peaceful, and how GLP-1 meds could reduce felonies. This is Fighting Crime, where we ask the big questions. What if we've been having the wrong conversations about crime?
Two policies, ban the box and clean slate, don't seem to be helping, even though they sounded like they should or they would.
I'm your host, Christina Quinn. I'm going across the country from prisons to universities, police chiefs to inmates, to look at the evidence and question everything we think we know about how to make America safer.
Economists think a lot about how people respond to incentives. If we want to reduce crime and change behavior, we need to increase the costs or reduce the benefit.
Join us as we figure out new ways to fight crime and be prepared to think differently. Fighting Crime. Listen or watch on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and Spotify.
Lee C. Camp here. If you've been enjoying this show, I think you might enjoy my podcast, No Small Endeavor, produced by Great Feeling Studios and PRX. No Small Endeavor explores what it means to live a good life. We sit down with courageous, impassioned people like actor Martin Sheen or civil rights hero James Lawson to ask what it means to live a life worth living. Follow No Small Endeavor wherever you get your podcasts. Living a good life is no small endeavor, and we would love to help.